Hey guys, today we are going to go over business expenses. So kind of like what is a business expense, where to keep track of them, and how to keep all that organized. So to start off, what is a business expense? So a business expense are the costs that are incurred in the ordinary course of business. So these are also referred to sometimes as deductions. Business expenses are a part of the income statement, and so on the income statement, you're going to have your business expenses being subtracted from your revenue. So what you're bringing into the company minus what it takes to run the company is going to end up and give you your business's taxable net income. So in general, companies have some limitations in special circumstances for like what can be counted as a business expense or deduction. So you're going to want to check with your accountant on this. I'm definitely not an accountant or a professional in this field, so definitely check with your own. But in general, therapists and other wellness professionals can deduct clinical supplies, continuing education, communication, so like your phone, maybe Wi-Fi, email, like your insurance premiums for your healthcare, different marketing materials, professional fees, travel, so maybe like your flights and your hotel for a conference. If you have two separate offices, maybe you can write off the travel between those two offices. I know you cannot write off, at least in Kentucky, the travel from your home to your office. But again, if you do have two separate offices, check with your accountant. You may be able to write off the travel in between those. Any office management things you have, so like rent, your EHR, utilities, any amenities you have for your clients, and then maybe like some banking fees that you have or some interest on some loans, you can write that off. Let's say you bought a couch for your house and sometimes you sit on that couch and do your notes or do your marketing materials. I'm going to say you cannot deduct that because it's just not really a close enough relation for you to write that off. But let's say you buy a couch for your office, that's definitely a business expense, and that's something that can be deducted. I will attach a link out to a more detailed list of things that typically therapists and wellness professionals can deduct, and I would suggest joining the Simple Profit Facebook group to get more like resources and information. And it's just a really good free group to join, where you can kind of search on the left-hand side of the Facebook group for all the different questions and things that you have about business-related expenses for private practice. So another good question and inquiry is like, where do you keep track of all this? So on the OneDrive folder for the Be Mindful Louisville tenants, you can access an Excel document that kind of breaks it down by month, and then it has a summary page, and you can keep track of all your information on there. It's a pretty simple template. You may be able to find or pay for a much more in-depth one, but for what I do in my part-time practice, it serves my needs just fine. It just pretty much has a column for what I'm bringing in and what I'm expensing, and then it, subtracts those and gives me a total. And then the summary page just breaks it down a little bit more, so I can see across the months. Like in January, I spent $100 on marketing, but in March, I'm spending $300. Like, what's going on? What happened in those months to why I'm spending so much more? I can just kind of make it a little bit easier for you to digest. But you can also use, software like QuickBooks or Wave or Xero to be able to help you track those things. Most of those are going to be paid for services if you're using them for your business. But again, it can be really helpful because you can link it up to your bank account and you can kind of keep everything in one space, opposed to having to manually enter a lot of the things on your own. There's also services like Grow Your Books is a service that can keep track of everything for you. I'm not sure where exactly he works out of, but he's not in Kentucky, but he has a company that assists mental health and healthcare professionals keeping track of all their things, bookkeeping wise. And then also your accountant is going to be a good resource for you to reach out to, because they typically can make up an Excel sheet for you, and or they have someone in their office like a bookkeeper that would be able to do that for you. I personally use Larry Judd I find that he's very affordable and very approachable and really honest, and really enjoy working with him. So if you want his contact information, just let me know and I can happily connect you guys. But in the end, like what works for me and how I stay organized may be a little bit different than what's going to work for you. So I definitely want to know what you guys are doing, and maybe there's some tips and tricks that we can share with each other to overall assist each other stay more organized on this like business side of running our private practices. But for a majority of us, especially if we're in part-time, we can't or we aren't going to have like a lot of monthly business expenses. So there should not be like too many things for us to keep track of, and we should be able to tackle this. But remember, if this is something that's super overwhelming for you, like outsource it. Kind of be able to see what that return on investment for you would be if you were able to spend $100 a month on a bookkeeper. That may be worth it for you, and maybe you could just spend that time that you would have used to track all your expenses and see another client, and maybe you can make that money back. You know, there's certain ways to justify outsourcing different things in our practice, especially if it's causing you a really big headache. But if you don't want to outsource, that's okay too. Like text me or call me or post in the group. I would love to like sit down and help you organize. I personally love organizing things. But I also just really want to be able to empower you guys to be able to run your businesses in the way that you want. So I'm always here to help out in any way possible. Again, if my door is open, come on in. And if I'm not here, just call or text me and we can set up a time to meet. But personally, what I do is I keep all my receipts in the month for all my businesses in this. Like literally just throw them in here. If I go to a networking event or I buy copy paper or whatever it is, I put all the receipts in here, keep them in here until the end of the month. And then at the end of the month, I go through and I sort them all out. I organize them by business, and then I input them into Excel. When I do have a receipt, I typically write on it. So if I go to a networking event and I buy a coffee there, I'm going to use my business, you know, credit card or debit card to pay for that drink. And then on there, I'm going to write on it what it was. So I'm going to write what month it is so I can easily track it and follow it. So I'm going to write, you know, August networking coffee with Amanda, paid for with Therapy by Shannon debit card. And then come back from the office, file it in here, and then I don't really think about it until the end of the month. And I have reminders on my calendar at the end of every month to remind myself to take all my receipts, organize them, and put them in the Excel sheet. So what I literally do is I set it all out. I make different piles for my different businesses to make sure I'm keeping everything separate. I input them in the Excel document and I do the summary sheet. And after I do that, you know, it's going to give me my totals for what I brought in for the month and what I expensed to run my business. And then it's going to give me a total of what I profited. From that total, I take about 30% of that out for my taxes at the end of the year, put them in my savings account, and my business savings account, and then I pay myself. And then again, I don't really think about it again till the end of the month. That system is not going to work for everyone. I understand that, but it is suggested to kind of stay on top of it throughout the year and not put it off until the end of the year, because it's going to be really overwhelming if you have like 300 receipts or something like that to go through, and you are getting overwhelmed at tracking through your kind of checking account and seeing where you spent money, and you're like, oh, I went to Quills on that day, I don't remember what that was for. Like, it's just going to be easiest if you have the receipts right there and they tell you what that Quills charge was for. Oh, it was networking with Amanda. And you also could like miss out on different things that you could have deducted, but you just kind of forgot about it, or you got overwhelmed because you put it off for so long that now you just kind of missed out on that opportunity. So like for simple terms, and like for an example, if I bring in like $1,000 a month in my private practice, And after adding up all my expenses, it takes me about $500 to run my practice and run my business. That pretty much means that I'm only paying taxes on that $500 because we brought in $1,000, we paid $500 throughout the month on all of our expenses. So we're taking the 1,000 minus the 500, and that's leaving us with 500 left over. So I'm going to end up taking that 30% of that 500 and putting it into my savings account. So that's going to be about $150 of that going to my savings account. But if for some reason I wasn't thinking about expenses, I wasn't tracking anything, I wasn't really focused in on making sure I'm deducting those, then I brought in 1,000 and it's going to look like I'm profiting 1,000 for the month just because I'm ignoring all the expenses. And so I'm going to take 30% of 1,000 and I'm going to put 300 in my bank account for the taxes. So it just doesn't line up, and we can end up kind of missing out on money in a sense if we're not kind of staying on top of our deductions. But kind of, again, in the end, a lot of the times this can be super stressful. So ask me questions, ask your accountant questions, ask each other questions. Like, that's a lot of why this environment is here, to be able to help us connect with each other and help each other out on these tricky parts of business that are outside of our clinical kind of space. But keeping track of these expenses throughout the year can also like help you make more money in the end. So for some of us, when we're first starting out, we're not really making a profit the first couple months or the first couple years of our practice. We're focused on like getting clients and getting the word out there about our services. That's totally normal and okay if you're not really making a profit at the beginning. I definitely wasn't. That doesn't mean that you're never going to bring in money. It just means that this is a growing phase, and that's totally normal for a new business. But keeping track of these expenses can help you kind of trim the fat in a sense. So if you notice that every month I'm only bringing in $500 and I'm expensing $800, like looking at that, trying to be like, why am I expensing so much money and not bringing in any money? Like, how can I adjust my schedule to maybe allow myself more client hours? Or how can I trim some of the fat on my expenses so I'm not putting out so much money and not bringing it in? And it's also really common for therapists to have lots of other jobs. So sometimes you have a full-time job or you have lots of part-time gigs, and making sure that you're either keeping those very separate and or you're appropriately joining them together. So if you have a full-time job and you're a W-2 employee somewhere, that's something that's totally separate than your LLC or your private practice. So if I work at Our Lady of Peace and I also have a private practice, my W-2 income and everything that goes with that W-2 is very separate than everything that goes into my Therapy by Shannon private practice. For me personally, I have my Therapy by Shannon private practice. I have B.mindful Louisville. I keep those businesses very separate in my expenses. But then within my Therapy by Shannon practice, I have my private practice income that I see my individual clients with, but then I also contract with Wayne Corporation. So since I contract with Wayne Corporation under my LLC, Therapy by Shannon, my Wayne Corporation income and my private practice income all go into the same Therapy by Shannon expense sheet. If this is confusing at all, again, ask questions or talk to your accountant. They're going to be very quick and easy to be able to tell you which business and which expenses should go where. But I know that was kind of long-winded. A lot more kind of came out once I started talking. But if you have any questions on the topic, I would love to answer them. I would love to kind of start a conversation on the thread about this, and or just enter between the tenants and stuff. So shoot me an email or write in the comments or anything like that. And again, I would really like to learn about how you guys are keeping track of your expenses, because just because I do it this way doesn't mean it's the right or wrong way. It's just what works for me. There's going to be lots of other things that work for you guys too. So kind of share the love and share the knowledge. But until next time, I hope you guys all have a good rest of your week, and talk soon. Bye.